Howdy. Adam here. I've got this cowboy hat, which was a gift from my wife, and she loves it on me, so I'm wearing it in this video. I think it fits me a little bit. I don't know. You tell me in the comments. I love it. Fits my bald guy aesthetic. Anyway, this video is 13 years of brand building and e-commerce learnings and a bit of just me talking to you, the brand builder, the big dreamer, the e-commerce builder. Whether you're new to this and you've never launched anything before, or you've got a brand that you're trying to scale, I hope that this video will give you some insight and some knowledge that took me, over a decade to learn. And this isn't scripted, it's just off the cuff. I'm just going to talk about it, and hopefully some of this stuff will resonate with you. I got started in my e-commerce journey when Amazon was really kind of in its infancy as far as it goes for sellers. The platform had been around for a little while, and obviously people had started to shop on it, but wasn't as well known or I think commonplace as it is now for people. Everybody shops on Amazon now. But when I got started, which was, I guess, around 2012-ish, not everybody shopped on Amazon. And definitely there were not many private label brands on Amazon. People, sellers on Amazon at the time were people who were mostly like reselling or, wholesaling stuff. And this idea that, you could build a business that way, a private label business, was pretty new. And what I decided to do and why I decided to get into it is because I read the book, The 4-Hour Work Week, and I was completely blown away by it. In my mind, I had thought all of these things and wanted these things, but that book was the first time I ever felt like it was really, articulated in a way that made sense and made me feel like that was something that I could do. And so I decided that I wanted to get into online business. I wanted to build something that gave me location independence. My girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and I had just started living together. And we wanted to travel the world and we wanted flexibility. And so I started to look for different things that, would work for this type of business model. And I came across someone who had launched a product on Amazon. They went to China, to Canton Fair. They sourced the product and they launched it on Amazon. And in my mind, I thought, man, this is definitely something I can do, right? Like, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know at all what it meant to even do anything private label. Really, I hadn't, built anything like that before. But I felt like this was something I could do. I wasn't tech savvy in the sense of I wasn't coding. Especially back then, like, it's not how it is now with AI and all this other stuff. I mean, you had to be a software developer, and that meant, formal education typically, or at least knowing computers for a long time. I didn't have these tech skills, but I understood that I could buy something, brand it, and sell it for more than what I paid for. And to me, that was such a simple concept. And I just felt confident that I could do it. And so I actually went to China. I went to China with my wife, or my girlfriend at the time, and went to Canton Fair and met all the suppliers, walked the grounds for, I think it was almost a week. By the end of it, my feet were so sore. My wife too. We kept complaining about how tired we were, but we felt so excited and so invigorated. And we met all these suppliers and we found a couple products that we wanted to launch. And we decided to launch that. At the time, it was a Cossacks cushion, because you could kind of search on eBay and see what people were searching for. And that's how you determine keyword volume. There weren't any of the tools that you have now. And so I sourced that product and started selling it. And I think, I don't remember exactly how many days it took, but it took a couple days only before the product started selling. And I just remember waking up one morning and there was like $200 in sales overnight, and my mind was just blown, and I just completely changed my perspective on anything. Like, I realized that I could make money online, and I was going to do this. And so my wife and I set out on that journey. And over the years, we ended up building up 4 different brands, selling them to an aggregator. I built a huge agency and scaled that business and sold that business too. Also co-founded a software company. I had a bunch of other mini failed ventures in between, but in general, focused on e-commerce and took action. And what I'm seeing now with TikTok Shop has given me the exact same feeling, where the opportunity that is in front of us is so massive, and yet it's still so new that most people have not even grasped this yet. It's just so incredibly compelling. And I mean, anybody can do this, right? If you have the right systems, if you have the right processes, if you have the right mentors, if you understand the opportunity, anybody can do this. Not only that, it's 100 times easier than it was when I got started selling on Amazon, and more complex in some other ways, but the opportunity is massive. And so my first lesson and my first point here is that the first movers, the ones who take action, the ones who see something and get inspired and just do, or they just say, I want to do this. I see it for what it is. I don't care how hard it is. I am going to either learn from somebody or figure it out on my own, but they just do. The first mover advantages are so huge in this space, in particular with TikTok Shop and some of these other technologies where, you could build an 8-figure brand in 24 months and then sell it for millions. There's very few other business models that you can do that without having the same barriers to entry of like needing a tech skill or needing some sort of experience in that regard to do this kind of thing. And so my first point and my first key lesson here is, when you see an opportunity like TikTok Shop, when it's in its early days, you have to take action now. You cannot wait, because the longer you wait, the more complicated it gets, the more competitive it gets, the more everybody else who is wanting to do the same thing is taking advantage of that opportunity, and the less chance you have of, winning in the space. It's not impossible. It just gets harder as time goes on and as the marketplace matures. We are still in the very early days, the early innings of TikTok. So I think you should 100% take advantage of this if you're thinking about getting into e-commerce. That is my first lesson. The second thing I'll say is, you have to double down when something is starting to show signs of working. The problem a lot of people have, myself included with certain businesses, and it's cost me over the years, I've learned from it since, but now I know better, is that they expect that you're going to do something once or twice and then all of a sudden it's going to work out and it's just going to be a linear growth up, and you're just going to start making money, or it's going to click and it's going to just work. And the truth is that business is not like that. Usually it takes a long time or some time and valleys of periods of time that it doesn't feel like it's working. And you have to power through that. And then when you start to see signs of things working, you have to double down on that. So don't, try a new thing, or when one product is working really well, that doesn't mean launch a new product right away. You should actually double your efforts on scaling that existing product and growing that product. Or if you have a brand that's doing well, people come to me and they're like, I want to launch multiple brands. I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm just saying it's much more complicated and you're spreading yourself thin across multiple things when really you should be focusing on the things that are working. It's the 80-20 principle. And the same applies to e-commerce, and the same applies to your efforts and your energy. If I had doubled down on e-commerce earlier, meaning gone even more aggressively, taking out loans to build my brands faster, focused on what was working instead of doing, consulting work here and there for these brands, or trying new products here, or different shiny object syndrome stuff, I probably would have made way more money in my exits. I mean, that's just me being honest with myself. And so to me, that's a super important lesson in this, is that focus on what's working and, notice the signs of things that are working. And the inverse to that is notice the signs when things aren't working. You have to cut your losses and your losers fast. Don't double down on stuff that isn't working and try to make it work, because you're just going to end up spending more time when you could be pivoting and working on something that will work. And that's hard to do. Sometimes you don't know what that is, and it's hard to determine it. But I think in your gut, you might have a sense, and you can take data and information from different sources and help you make those decisions. But for the most part, you want to double down on your winners, cut your losses early. And that's an important component of just brand building and entrepreneurship, and especially e-commerce as a whole. Otherwise, you're going to end up wasting time and money and effort on things that aren't going to give you the return that you need to grow and scale your business. The other thing I would say, and one of the other key lessons I learned, is you have to learn how to tap into capital. Okay? This is one of the most important skill sets, I think, in business and in life in general. And it comes really naturally for some people. For other people, it's a little bit more difficult, and you have to learn, because there's an element of networking and finessing the system. But the system exists, okay? We live in a capitalist society in most, places in the world. Not all, of course, but like America or most, Europe, and a lot of, places that are economically thriving. You have to learn how to get access to capital. And you can do that a lot of ways. You can do that through banking relationships. You can do that through storytelling. You can do that through, marketing and distribution. You can do that through things like, hacking credit cards and lines of credit, and setting everything up in a way that gets you, a higher probability of getting approvals and stuff like that. But you need access to capital. And it's not to say that you take that money and you spend it right away, but capital gives you the runway that you need to grow. Capital gives you access. Capital allows you to hire people so that you can scale. You really cannot scale a business without capital. It's almost impossible. And so I wish I had spent more time early on building those banking relationships, building those, mentorship relationships and connections and this kind of stuff, so that I would have had access to way more capital earlier on, so that I could have scaled my business. When those winners became apparent, I needed to put fuel on the fire, and I was a bit constrained because I was always using my own money to grow the business. Now, later on, I got access to lines of credit and SBA loans and stuff like that. But at that point, I already had a lot of revenue and growth. And so, I didn't need it as much. Impact was still good, but you definitely need to learn how to get access to capital. And part of that is being a good salesperson. Like, sales is probably the most important skill in life. And I say that with confidence. If you are good at sales, if you're good at storytelling, you can achieve anything. Okay, you can get access to capital, you can get partners, you can get people to buy in, you can get people to buy your products, you can get sales, you can grow your business, you can hire people. Everything revolves around this. And the better you get at sales, the more successful you will be in life and in business and relationships and everything. And I think for me, a lot of this came naturally. I tend to be somebody who's a good communicator. People say that they trust me, and, I give off an air of confidence. I think a lot of that comes from making mistakes and failing and being authentic with myself and honest to the people around me and you about what I've been through. And that takes time to build that up. But you can teach yourself a lot of these skills. You can learn how to get better at sales. You can learn how to be better at interpersonal relationships. You can be better at networking. And the first step to doing that is overcoming the fear and overcoming the stigma that sales is bad or manipulative or something like that. I am always surprised when people say things like that to me, and I just feel like, I don't think you understand it then. Sales is actually about being honest and authentic and getting to the core of what people need and providing value. Those are what drive good sales. Those are the key traits of good salespeople. It's not being outgoing, it's not being charismatic necessarily. It's being consistent. It's being relentless. It's being honest. It's understanding what people need and want and delivering on those things. That's what makes you good at sales. And so to me, sales is one of the key skills both in life but also in e-commerce, because if you think about it, you're going to have to negotiate with your suppliers. You have to negotiate with your third-party vendors. You have to sell a product to people, right? So sales can come in the form of copywriting and storytelling and visual storytelling as well, especially with TikTok and video. These are elements that are super important in growing your business and your brand. And I think it's just one of the most important, most relevant skills now and probably forever in humankind, because it's just that important and that impactful. Okay. The other thing I would say, and this is a little bit more technical, but what I've learned from talking now to hundreds of you about your goals and aspirations and dreams and your ideas and products and sales channels is simplicity wins. All right. I can't count the number of times that people come to me and they're like, I want to launch on Shopify, but I want to launch on TikTok. I want to launch on Amazon. I want to do all these different things together. The simplest route is often the best, and especially in e-commerce. Start with 1 or 2 channels first. The easiest is TikTok and then Amazon. Why? Well, because that's where the customers are. When you have a Shopify site, people think the hard part about it is building the site or even finding the product, although finding a winning product is really, really important, and I'll touch on that in a minute. But that's not the hard part. The hard part is getting people to come to your website, getting people to trust your brand, and getting people to, break out their credit card and pay. Those are 3 big walls that you have to climb, where on TikTok Shop, the customers are already there. The customers already trust the platform. And with reviews, they get trust in your brand. And if you market it properly, they're going to be comfortable and confident in busting out the credit card. You've removed 3 of the main barriers. And the same thing applies with Amazon. So I don't think starting with Shopify is the right thing to do. I think you should start on the platform where the audience lives already, and then just get really, really good at distribution, get really, really good at marketing, get really good at content, or again, get really good at sales and sell your idea to people who are really good at marketing, at content, the affiliates, etc. That's how you're going to win. And it's the simplest way of doing things. It's not complicated. And the same thing comes to product selection. I have people that come to me. In fact, I just talked to somebody, 2 days ago, and he wants to build an apparel brand or a shoe brand. He's never done e-commerce before. No capital, hardly any capital to start, And I said to him, I'm not trying to knock your idea. I would love to hear why you came to that conclusion, but I'm just going to tell you that that's a really complicated product to launch with. One, people are super fickle. It's a style-driven, trend-driven product. Second is you have to have a lot of different sizes. So your inventory is now super complex. You've got to have different colors, different sizes, different styles. And you got no capital to support that. That's a recipe for disaster. Instead, look at the data and find what the data tells you is a winning product. All right. I've codified this into a system in the Millionaire Brand Alchemy program that I have, which shows you exactly how, start to finish, to identify and map those signals and come up with a winning product that you can confidently buy 200, 500, even 1,000 pieces of, knowing that you can sell that product, because we did the front-loaded work and we simplified it. It's just one product. You nail the branding for that. You nail the story for that. You focus on that. And with one product, realistically, you could build a $30 million business, or even more than that, depending on the product. So it's all about simplicity, okay? And the same thing goes for operations and systems and hiring. I'll probably make a separate video on scaling and ops in a business, because that's a whole separate beast. But the truth is, you don't need a huge team. You don't need a bunch of people doing all these different things. And again, complexity, it like multiplies, it's exponential. So you make it as simple as possible, 1 or 2 sales channels, 1 product, 2 products maybe, and then one or two hires, and then you've got with the right product, you got a business that could be an 8-figure business. And that's it. You don't need to overcomplicate it with all this other stuff. But you have to use data to make decisions. And that's my next point. We have access to so much data. We have so many tools. We have AI research tools. You have Helium 10 for Amazon. You've got Fastmoss for TikTok Shop. You've got Google Trends. You've got Exploding Topics. You've got Reddit, X.com for research. All of these things are giving you signals. And it's making your life so much easier as a brand builder because you can just listen to those signals and know what products people want. And I go back to when I started, we didn't have that. And a lot of it was, guessing and to see what works and what doesn't. Nowadays, you have all the data at your fingertips. Not only that, you have AI to analyze it so it's not subjective, it's objective, analysis on the data and on the products. And this is a really incredible era to be in where you have access to all of this data and you need to use it to make smart decisions to, again, simplify the entire process and pick winning products. Because if you pick a winning product in the beginning, all of the rest of the stuff falls into place. I've made a bunch of videos on what a winning product is, so I'm not going to go into that right now. But one thing I think is really just kind of key to know here about a winning product or about marketing a winning product is it's way easier to start with a winning product that has a market demand that solves a problem that taps into an insecurity because the market is already looking for that than it is to find a product that you like for some reason and then try to make it fit, try to make the market want it and like it. It's really, really hard to do that. And the best marketers and salespeople know that that's just not the way to do it. So you want to reverse engineer and start with the winning product in the beginning and use data to do all of those things. Now, as far as brand building and visual identity, this is something that people either obsess over too much or spend not enough time on. It's a delicate balance. And ultimately, we are visual creatures. We shop with our eyes. We can tell when something's premium and when it's cheap. And a lot of that comes from here, what we see. So my point to you is focus on making a beautiful, well-branded, high-quality, premium brand identity from the beginning, and also work within your means and with speed. So what I mean by that is, don't let that process slow you down by months. You need to decide and move forward, and you can always iterate and improve on it. But don't just make some random, AI logo and don't even care about it, because you just can tell now. I see AI branding and stuff all the time. It's very obvious that it's done that way. Branding is super important, and so is your brand story. It's really important that you spend time on those things, and that's why I have such a long portion of the program and an in-depth portion of the program around brand identity, around your ICP, who's your ideal customer profile. Who are you selling this to? What do they react to? What do they want to see? What makes them compelled to buy a product? These are all super important things, and your branding is really, really important. Not only because people shop with their eyes, but we perceive value that way. And you can take a product that's generic and charge twice as much as your competitor if the product packaging looks premium. And so little exponential changes. So that can also include changing your product and improving it a little bit. I would always suggest doing that, but finding ways to make small iterative changes, but that have an exponential effect on your return, on what you can charge for the product, how people perceive it, all of these kind of things. This stuff is super important, and you got to nail it. And, I focus a lot on this because, if you get it right, it has such a huge impact on the business, on the brand, and on everything else. The next thing I want to talk about is mind state. And this is so important in entrepreneurship and in business and in life in general. I'm going to make a whole series on this for people who, need help with this type of thing. But, you have to understand that entrepreneurship and just life in general is inherently uncertain. Okay, there's no guarantees. There's no guarantee that, you're going to be a millionaire, a billionaire, whatever. There's no guarantee that you're going to wake up tomorrow. And that's just how life is. We can try to make things as predictable as possible, but life is inherently unpredictable. And you have to get comfortable with that uncertainty a little bit. One of the hardest things about entrepreneurship that I learned over the years is that there's no resolution. Like, the job is just never done. It's not like, a normal job where you do these 10 tasks, you check them off, and then, okay, I'm off work for the day. When you're running your own business, that list is endless. And you have to also protect your time and be smart about it, because otherwise that whole list will be so overwhelming and it'll take over your life and you'll just feel like crap because you're never going to get resolution in any of this stuff. But there's no finish line to it. Even when I sold my businesses, it didn't feel that way, right? It was like, okay, and then, what's the next thing? And this is a bigger philosophical thing, but you need to learn to appreciate the journey along the way and be comfortable with uncertainty, because nothing is guaranteed, nothing is certain, life is fragile, your time is precious. Enjoy it and enjoy the journey, but know that you're not going to go to sleep at the end of the day going, I accomplished every single one of my tasks for my business today. The way you get that resolution is by being ruthless about where you prioritize your time and your energy. Instead of having that list of 100 things to do, you need to narrow it down to 3 main things a day that actually matter to your business. Right? What drives revenue? What helps with growth? What helps you raise more capital? Whatever it is that's important to moving your business forward, those are the things that you need to focus your energy on and prioritize your time on. Without that, you're going to be floating this way, that way. You're going to be all over the place, and you'll never feel that sense of, accomplishment. And I don't want to say completion, because again, the job's never done, but feeling good about what you've done in a day, in a week, in a month, and in a year. And my last point before I wrap this video up is speed is so important, okay? The best entrepreneurs make decisions. They don't hesitate. They're smart about some things, and they hesitate when they need to, although I wouldn't call it hesitate. I would say that they assess and analyze when they need to. But speed is so important in business. You have to be able to take action. You have to be able to take the leap, make the move, pull the trigger, whatever you want to call it. Be decisive in business, because that is what's going to actually be catalysts for things that either positively affect your business, hopefully, or sometimes negatively affect your business. And then when you see those things, then you have to be quick also to iterate and fix them. And I've never met a successful CEO or brand owner or founder who is indecisive. I mean, it's not a trait of the successful. And if you can't be decisive, then you need to outsource the decision making to somebody else, because that will hinder your business or explode your business if you actually know how to be decisive and make decisions and move the ball forward every single day. Even if it feels hard or if you're not sure, that's okay. A decision is almost always better than no decision. And those are the last bits of information about mentality and mind state. Again, I'll make a separate video on this because I could go way deep in this. It's super important. But know that what you want to accomplish in a year, you can probably do it in 3 months if you really hustle hard. And what you want in 5 years, you could do it in a year. You have to have that belief, that unwavering belief. I have that belief in you. I know that you can do it. You can do it. Believe in yourself. And if you need somebody to help you, I am here. That's part of my job, is to mentor you and guide you and help you if you want to build an e-commerce brand leveraging TikTok Shop and AI and Amazon. I'll see you in the next video.